Hey all, welcome to ShareTrack. This is Raj here. Friends, I was really gratified to see so many comments on my previous video about the landmark lawsuit brought against Gilead by 24,000 HIV patients who had used Gilead's medications. And it was a very unique lawsuit, so there was a lot of interest in our ShareTrack community, both from investors as well as HIV patients. And both seem to be arriving at it from a very different angle. Obviously, our investors are looking at it from the point of view of running the company, looking at the profitability, viability, and purpose of their doing a job like making a medicine. On the other hand, the patients are approaching it from the point of view of a sociological angle, where they are looking at it as a human right, they're looking at the cost aspect, etc. And both are right in their own ways. I think I can add a lot of value into this discussion because I have a whole bunch of points that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't in the earlier video in the interest of keeping it short. I'm going to do that in this video now. So let's get started. Welcome back, friends. First off, let me start by saying that the world leaders know why it is important to cure HIV. I'll give you a few reasons out here. First of all, the cost to society is immense. The cost of providing subsidized or free ART is less than the cost of HIV. So you can imagine how high the cost of HIV is on society in general. The economic burden of HIV or AIDS is substantial. People living with untreated HIV or AIDS often require more extensive medical care, hospitalizations, and treatment for opportunistic infections. This places a strain on healthcare systems and increases the overall healthcare cost. Subsidizing therapy can be most cost-effective in the long run by preventing more serious health complications and reducing the strain on healthcare resources. Friends, those of you who are living in G7 countries, like I'm living in Canada, we have a very strained healthcare system where we don't have sufficient doctors, general practitioners. So most people find it difficult, first of all, to get a family doctor. They have to go to walk-in clinic. The second problem is hospital beds. There aren't sufficient hospital beds. The third problem is lack of specialists. So if one were to require a heart specialist or a kidney specialist, it would take 6 or 8 months of wait listing. So that's the kind of situation we have in G7 countries. At least that's what I see here in Canada. And on the other hand, if you are in a country which allows paid medicine, then the cost is exorbitant for any kind of specialist services, and insurance may or may not cover the entire amount, and the premiums will be high. And there will be pre-existing conditions clause that prevent you from getting repeat treatment for the same ailment. So all those things said together, the cost as it is very expensive. And if ART was not provided to HIV patients, then they are going to have opportunistic infections, and they will have to be treated in a specialized environment so that the infection doesn't spread to others. For example, if you had to operate on a HIV patient, I suspect it will be done after all the operations of the day is over, and they'll be done separately to make sure that there is no spread. So those kind of consideration also add logistical issues to an already strained medical system. So that's the reason why you find that in many countries, the government is heavily subsidizing ART and providing it to its citizens who are suffering from HIV, and in some countries it's given free of cost. So that's the first realization that people should understand, and especially people who are suffering from HIV should understand that everything is not bad. The government is doing its best, and when the government provides subsidized ART, it's actually paying a lot of money to the manufacturers in order to keep the manufacturing going. So that's point number one. Second thing is the cost of infection, a new infection, is phenomenal. So it's better to prevent new infection by making sure that people undertake ART, and as a result of which spread can be limited and contained, because every new infection is going to add to the burden on the government's budget to provide free ART and free facilities. So that's the other point. Also, the cost of HIV on the entire family of the person who has got HIV is also immense. Apart from the stigma that is still associated with it in some parts of the world, there is the other considerations of making sure that nobody else gets infected. So overall, those kind of situations also put additional burden onto the family and the community in general, and also on the HIV patient, because they are human and they also need to be treated equally. So if you look at it from the humanity and political considerations, access to healthcare, including HIV therapy, is a fundamental human right, and subsidies ensure that even individuals with limited financial means can access life-saving treatment. This promotes equity and prevents discrimination against people based on their socioeconomic status. So that's a lot of reasoning why ART is being provided. The World Health Organization is doing what it can by providing guidelines and recommendations for preventing treatment, for prevention and for treatment, for care and support. And it's also promoting the use of ART to minimize transmission. It's also promoting the use of PrEP to prevent spread. And it promotes expanded HIV testing and diagnosis in order to capture cases that may go undiscovered and lead to further spread, and start providing ART to them and keep it under control. It works on elimination of mother-to-child transmission to keep HIV under control. And it also conducts monitoring and surveillance of infections globally, supporting research and innovation and international collaborations. Okay, so the message to the people who are suffering from HIV and looking at this particular court case and looking at the pharma company with suspicion, or society in general as being inequitable, this is my message. And also to the investors who are looking at the scenario, there is a tight balance that is being struck in terms of profitability, innovation of pharmaceutical companies in order to keep on coming up with better and better products to cure and treat and ultimately cure HIV, is being taken care of, and it's being balanced against the human rights, fundamental human rights for a person to be able to get treatments and to protect the society in general. And that's being done by governments, and there are a lot of non-government organizations who are also chipping in order to make this balance more equitable and continue promoting innovations. Now, I'd like to give an example of the sickle cell disease for which we have genomic treatment. For beta thalassemia also we have genomic treatments. So the example I would say is that if you take the cost of all the pain and suffering that a person with sickle cell disease would have throughout their lifetime, and the amount of money they would spend in order to resolve those episodes throughout their lifetime and stay alive, that comes to around 2.1 million to 2.4 million for the lifetime of a person. So the way the pricing is being done is that genomic medicine costs a lot of money to make, to package, to deliver, to harvest the cells and make the modification, put it back into the body and so on. All of that costs a lot of money. So in order for investors who sponsor these companies to make these medicines, there has to be some returns, and at the same time patients need to get the medicine. So the proposition for the companies is that if you come up with a treatment that can cure a person, it's a once and done cure, then why not we pay you the cost that a person would have incurred for treatment for their lifetime all at once, upfront, so that you can give the treatment to them. And that makes sense. So those comments where I had seen quite a few comments where not only in the English channel but also in the Hindi channel, where I had a Hindi version of this video, there is a lot of suspicion. People are saying, why should a company make a once and done treatment for HIV if they can continue giving treatment throughout the lifetime of a HIV patient and keep on extorting money? That's not the way to look at it, because if a company can get all the money that you're going to spend in a lifetime to treat HIV at one point of time, right up front, for them to cure you, why wouldn't they take that? Why do they have to keep on coming to you again and again for money and keep on making a medicine again and again and incurring costs? They can do it all one shot. So there's a great deal of incentive for companies to come up with a once and done kind of therapy and provide that to people. And remember, if for HIV you have once and done treatment, then there is going to be a period of time after which we won't have HIV in humans, because once and done treatment will make sure that there is no new transmission, and for the lifetime of a person it will keep them HIV under control, either as a functional cure or it will eliminate HIV as a sterilizing cure. Either way, the spread of HIV will reduce drastically. The number of new cases will also be very less, and over a period of time the once and done treatment will become obsolete, and it will stay in the vaults for any future outbreak, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and mankind would be rid of the entire scourge of HIV. So to those patients who are thinking in that manner, I would say that not to be so cynical. The companies are working towards a once and done cure, and they will get properly compensated, and governments may step in order to subsidize. And how do you think subsidization happens? There is MPP and there is World Health Organization. They all get together, they negotiate with companies which have spent millions and millions of dollars and 7 or 8 years to come up with a therapy, get it approved through FDA, and then bring it into the market. They need to recover the costs, and WHO and MPP then negotiate with them and try to get licenses for generic versions and provide it to lesser developed countries and to people who are financially unable to afford them. So that's already happening. That's how Cabenuva is going into other countries which are economically less capable for paying those, and they are getting a generic version. Now, coming back to pricing patterns, right? So generic is not a universal answer for everything, in my opinion, because I'm looking at both the investment side and I'm also looking at the patient side, because I'm producing this HIV component, and I look at the comments from various people, and I'm also studying up on the sociological, sociopolitical and socioeconomic aspect of this disease. So I'm trying to balance the overall outlook here for everybody, whether you're an investor or you're a patient. So here's what I would like to tell you. The way the economics works is that if a medicine is successful and it's under patent, the patent lasts for 10 years, I think. And during that 10 years, the company has to recover the cost that it had put in there, and it has to recover profits so that it can compensate the shareholders and the scientists and the executives and the workers who did all the work in developing it. So they have a brief window of time, after which the therapy becomes generic. Now, what happens when a therapy or a medicine becomes generic? Everybody, all the generic companies jump on board to start making a generic version. And when they start making the generic version, a very interesting thing happens. The company which put the research and all the efforts to create the medicine now finds that its product is very, very expensive compared to the cheap generics. And why are the generic companies able to produce the therapy cheap? Because they don't have any R&D expenses. They copy the formula and they can produce it and give it into the market. So all the R&D expenses and other things which the company that discovered the particular therapy expended is not in their books. So it's possible for them to do it cheaply. And now what happens is it's not just one company, but there are 5 or 6 companies producing the same therapy in different brand names. So when the generic companies start competing among each other, they start driving down the margins further. So a patient may say, yeah, that's a good thing. I'm getting it for way cheaper, so it's very good for me. But just hold on and think for a minute. What happens typically is that all these generic companies drive down the margin, and if the margin is driven down for the generic company to find a particular generic medicine to be viable, they need to sell in huge volumes. If they are not able to sell in huge volumes, they look at another therapy which has just come out of patent protection, which is going to go generic, and then they turn their resources to do that therapy because the margins are higher there, and they just drop making the therapy that they were doing before. And with the competition, many of these companies will drop manufacturing the generic therapy 2 or 3 years down the line because the competition is too much, the margin is too less, and their sales are too less because the market is fragmented. So there is no more generic version available, and also the parent company, having found that it is too expensive, shelves that product and goes on to put money and efforts on finding a cure for new diseases, coming up with new therapies. And the end of it, a whole class of medicine may no longer be available cheaply to the patients, despite it being off the patent. So this is a distinct possibility for many therapies or drugs that go generic. So always keep in mind all these dynamics of the market. And to the investors, what I would say is that there is always the patent protection, which gives a window of opportunity for our companies to recover costs as well as generate some profits. And at the same time, to the patients, what I would say is that do not suspect every pharmaceutical company as being greedy and as being of an inclination to delay inventions, delay innovations, and not producing a once and done cure for HIV over 30 years. The reason why HIV has been a big problem is because it's a retrovirus, and it's using the CD4 T cells, which are the generals in our human immune system. If you remove the CD4, the entire human immune system army doesn't have a command and control, and therefore it becomes useless. And the CD4 is what HIV targets, and it's a retrovirus. And that's the reason why it's been difficult. And it mutates very fast. And that's the reason why it has taken a longer time for companies and scientists to come up with a solution. And I'm pretty confident in the next 4 or 5 years, apart from art, which is performing as a functional cure, but has to be taken daily, we are going to have more and more therapies, which will be once a month, twice a month, or once in every 2 years, and then ultimately once and done functional cure, and finally once and done sterilizing cure. In the next 10 years, we're going to see this whole range of possibilities happen. So always, I would say that you need to have, whether you're an investor or you are a patient, always clarity of mind is very, very important. The internet has become a very insidious place, and with the advent of social media, anyone with a camera and a mic can spout anything that comes in their mind between their 2 ears. And unfortunately, many people without critical thinking just pick up whatever they hear and see on the internet and then propagate it as wisdom and blindly believe it. I think that's very wrong. You have to curate anything that you see on the internet or on social media. You have to do your own due diligence, look at reputable sources to understand, and then form your own opinion. Right now in the comments, I have seen people begging for a vaccine for cure of HIV. On the other hand, when a COVID-19 vaccine was provided, many people were suspicious of the vaccine, and they said, how could it be manufactured so quickly, and we are not going to take it. So there was that kind of anti-vax movement. And there are places where smallpox is back because people didn't want to give vaccination to their kids. And polio can make a resurgence if people don't give polio vaccines to their kids. And all of this nonsense has come because of social media and the ability for anyone to make a video. So in this Share Trek channel, it's my personal mission to make sure that I do not propagate any kind of conspiracy theories out here. So I'm going to give the benefit of doubt to both the patients as well as the pharmaceutical companies. I'm going to always look at a reliable source like NIH or Science Magazine or Nature Magazine, reputable sources, and double check everything that I publish out here. And so let me assure you, companies are working hard to get us once and done cure for HIV. And there's a lot of money to be made out there. And to the patients also, I'm saying that the society cares a lot about you, and they already are subsidizing ART, which is very, very expensive. If without the subsidy, I think many people can't afford it. So the governments and non-governmental organizations are pumping in money into that, and the future is bright. So have a lot of hope there and be positive. A positive frame of mind will allow you to look at all the positive things that are happening. And especially some viewers from India said, we already sent a spaceship into a satellite to land on the moon, and we still don't have HIV. To them, I say that, yeah, we have to do all-round development. We cannot say that until we have a HIV cure, we are not going to do anything else. Everything has to happen in tandem. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. And there are a lot of bright minds out there who are doing pioneering research, and it's there. They wake and sleep and continue to work just to come up with a breakthrough innovation and have their names in the halls of fame in science and technology to win a Nobel Prize. So we have got CRISPR-Cas9, we got prime editing, we got genomic sequencing, we got base editing. There's so much of knowledge that has been accumulated in the last 10 years itself that most of these diseases will be conquered in a couple of decades. So with that, my friends, I'd like to end this video. I hope you find inspiration, whether you are an investor or a HIV patient or a sickle cell disease patient. All of those diseases are going to be controlled and conquered. Just a matter of time. Hang in there, stay positive, be happy. That's all for now, my friends. Bye for now.